Right.
Just
You're good.
okay. Can everyone see the slides? Okay, great. So welcome to 5 Minutes of Team Science. And today I'm going to be talking about knowledge management and technology. So the big question in teams in terms of knowledge management is how can teams harness the individual expertise of members so that relevant information is shared how, when, and with whom it is most needed to build a shared understanding and also effectively implement the knowledge integration that you have. So that's a tall order. And I want to talk about some knowledge management activities that teams go through. If you had to put them in three big buckets, they would be knowledge accumulation, which is the idea generation, getting all the ideas on the table, and then acquiring that knowledge and starting to share that knowledge with one another. So that's the accumulation stage. Another phase of the knowledge management activities are integration, which is synthesizing ideas, combining insights. So just, of course, knowledge accumulation, is very different from integration. It doesn't mean that it's collectively interpreted, which is the integration stage. And then you want to implement that knowledge. So translating that knowledge integration into decisions and actions and what you're actually going to do as a team entity. So how do you move, from accumulation to integration to implementation? And so I want to feature the work of a recent journal article by Christina Gibson and colleagues, who I just had the opportunity to meet up with at UC Irvine just a few weeks ago and learn more about this work. But a key thing in this progression from knowledge across these knowledge management activities is changes in technology to facilitate these changes in knowledge stages. So the changes in the technology were critical in this particular work to enabling the shifts across these knowledge management activities. So I want to say a little bit more about that. So in this model, they had that to manage the knowledge, you really have to be agile with the technology and change the technology to accomplish what you're trying to do in the team with regard to that knowledge stage. So for example, with knowledge accumulation, what you're really trying to do is focus attention. You want to get the members' attention on a particular issue, get them thinking about it, get their ideas, get them start to share ideas about that particular thing. So knowledge focus is really the key to that new knowledge accumulation. And that is best carried out through planning tools, through scheduling tools, and conference calls, teleconferencing. That's what they found was useful to, again, get people's attention on the issue. For integration, the most effective purpose of the communication for that it's sense-making essentially. So that's what you're trying to do in terms of the communication. That's what you want to happen to facilitate this integration, this joint exchange and interpretation, collective interpretation of information. And that was carried out by a lot of times email and instant messaging, so after you've had kind of the focus and attention on, you've met, you've conferenced, you've planned, you've scheduled, now it's sort of like giving people time to think and to asynchronously deal with the information, following up with certain people to get more information on that, and giving people a chance to, again, digest the information and get more clarity on particular aspects. And then the implementation, the most effective purpose for the communication was the public codification of that information. And it's carried out through face-to-face meetings and then also SharePoint. So usually this was iterative. So you got together in a face-to-face format, you to kind of translate the information that you had already made sense of. And then afterwards, you needed to codify that knowledge, get it down in a format that everybody had access to. So things like SharePoint were critical for this phase. So I know there's a lot here on this slide, but I wanted to kind of feature the bottom part, the yellow part here, which was shifts. And how did people recognize these shifts, the need to, okay, we've already accumulated knowledge, we really should be moving towards integration at this point, or we have integrated the knowledge, now we need to move toward implementation. And there were certain cues that people got attuned to, and the effective teams were attentive to these cues of when they needed to shift. So, things like realizing that there are certain characteristics of the knowledge that you need to move from accumulation to integration. So, we're not really understanding it. We have a lot of facts on the table, but now we need to dive deeper. We need, more synthesis. So things like realizing the cognitive demands are exceeding, our ability to process in a teleconferencing or just scheduling tools. We need to, follow up with more email, more information, more instant messaging to clarify, what those touch points are that we're not getting. And then likewise, when you've integrated, realizing that, maybe there's some trust issues with emails going back and forth and people being left out of information flows. And now you need to start to shift. There may be some sensitivity issues that now you need to, have more face-to-face conversation, trust issues that are better served in a face-to-face context, and then followed up with SharePoint, of taking all that knowledge that happened face-to-face, that codified face-to-face, and then really having an external repository of that knowledge. And then, kind of feeding back, so once you've met face-to-face in SharePoint, now it's like, okay, well, the next issue, now we need to go back to accumulation of knowledge. Let's have a teleconference. Let's get some scheduling and planning tools on there. So just to point out that the critical thing about this was the timing of the technology, and it's complicated, right? It depends on what knowledge activity are you trying to engage in. Is it accumulation of knowledge, integration of knowledge, implementation of knowledge? And then what is the purpose of interacting with others in the communication media? What do you want the technology to help you to do? And that is it attention focusing, just get everybody's attention on this issue? You want their brains, moving on this particular issue. And how do you do that? Do you need people to make sense of things, do a deeper dive into the information? Or is it about codification of just, we need to get some things down so that everybody we facilitate this getting on the same page thing. And then, the technologies that are available for use, whether it's planning or face-to-face or teleconferencing, those kinds of things. So characteristics of effective teams in this sample, and they were focusing here on global teams in particular, but they sensed what knowledge management activities when they needed to shift. So, okay, we've done enough accumulation. We need to move into more synthesis and integration, recognizing that. And then, the cues that the technology is no longer facilitating what you want and being willing and able and agile to move and to change it. Okay, we're going to now have a period of email follow-up, or we're going to get on SharePoint, or, and again, the purpose of what you're wanting to do in the team is driving these choices and trying to make it as explicit as you can. And then changing again to improve your effectiveness. So just some points to take away in terms of thinking about your particular team is what are you trying to accomplish with regard to knowledge management in your team? Is it, you need people to just start to think about this? We need ideas on the table. We need more integration and synthesis. We need implementation ideas. What are you trying to do there? And then, what technology best facilitates that, for attention focus, for sense making, for codification, to think about, are you attuned to shifts, when shifts are needed, and are you agile and willing to move? The poor performing teams in this research, they just stayed with one technology and they didn't do anything other than that. And they expected that technology to meet all the different needs and dynamism changes in the team, and it doesn't. And so continually being willing to adjust and move across different technologies to match what you're trying to do in terms of knowledge integration is key. So I will say we have more to do here in this space. This is a recent article. It's kind of cutting edge in terms of what they did and the longitudinal focus and dynamism. But it's where we're going, as a field. And I do think we have some more work to do with the implementation part and helping people to know when sense when shifts are needed. But I wanted to get it out there. It's current work. And I think there is even here implementation strategies that we all can implement, including myself. So thanks for your kind attention.